family home. So I would do nights at the hospital. I would run like 18-hour shifts back to back at the ICU, and then do a transplant before, do a transplant after. So basically, I'll be out of the house for about 20-24 hours. So this cycle was probably not sustainable long term, and the Zara pretty much said, "Look, this is crazy. The kids don't know you. You're kind of like a guest in our own house."
Welcome back everyone to my channel Motivationalee. I hope everyone is feeling good and have that good vibes as well and feeling motivated. Do you know what? I am being joined today by these two lovely couple. Very amazing stories as well to tell later on. But you know, one is a doctor, one was an public relations and events, and now an entrepreneur. So I won't tell you more about this because I wanted to tell you as well what they have actually achieved here in Australia, okay? So sit back and relax. Without further ado, I would like you to meet my two lovely guests from Azara and Adele. How are you? Hello, good to see you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, nice to see you. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for
having us. Come sit down. It feels like a nice cozy place. Thank you. This is their place actually. Thank you. And brief background about yourself first. Thank you.
Okay, so we are Sri Lankan by birth. We've lived there. I've lived there since I was born, and I was raised there as well. We moved to Australia together with our little boys when in 2012, when the boys were 2 and 6 years.
Very young.
Yeah, and then I took a break from my career. I used to be in PR, public relations and event management. I took a break to look after the kids and take care of the home while Adil was working and studying. We first moved to Townsville in 2012. We came with 4 suitcases with nothing else from Sri Lanka and started from scratch, really.
Mr. President, the first thing has spoken. Brief background about you, Adil.
Sure, I was Sri Lankan born and raised, very proud to be from there. Left when I was 17 or 18. Went to Budapest in Hungary, studied medicine there, finished that, and then I had a lot of American friends there, so kind of migrated to, because I have family in the States as well. So ended up moving to the States, was in Washington and New York, and I used to shuttle back and forth between Sri Lanka and America for like almost 7 years, but not every year. So I do something called observerships there, get some work experience, and then I met Azara while I was on holiday from Budapest. And we remained friends for a long time, and then eventually got together, and then that's the time when I was shuttling back between the States and Sri Lanka. And then for some reason we chose to move to Australia.
We'll get to know more later why Australia, okay?
Which we'll figure out why Australia. It's basically guns and...
Do you have fear? Do you have any fear? How about you, Azra? How do you overcome fear as well?
You can't not have fear. I think having fear is just being human. It's the ability to like just see your fear and just still persevere. So push through no matter the fear and just go, yeah, I see you. That's okay. It's okay to have fear. It's just what you do then.
Fear and what motivates you to overcome?
Well, until a year ago, I used to think I was fearless because I used to take every risk possible, even moving from Sri Lanka to here, because I had never lived overseas before that. I was raised in a little bubble, as you say, in Colombo, because my parents were so protective of me. I had 2 older brothers who also protected me. So, and then when I met Adil and he was studying for his medical boards in the US, he was talking about moving to the US, and I was like, yes, let's do it. And then in the meantime, both my brothers by then were living in Melbourne because they had come here to uni and stayed back and then found jobs and then got married and settled here. And they at the time told me, look, why don't you ask Adil to apply for jobs in Australia, because there were more opportunities for foreign doctors, because there was a shortage. So then I was like, okay, my family is there, or my kids' cousins, first cousins from my side are all here. So I kind of convinced him, let's try Australia instead of the US. And then there was no fear, because at the time I felt like I was a risk taker, so I just took it. Left everything behind, my comfort zone, left my job, my career, my parents, and it was a huge step for me. And I moved, and then started our life from scratch in Townsville, which was so different to where we grew up and what we were used to.
That's right.
Then we moved 3.5 years later. We moved to Melbourne. Again, my decision, because Adil was really in love with Townsville. Townsville is a beautiful place. It's tropical, and there's lots of sunshine, unlike here. But I wanted to move closer to my family. My brothers were here, their wives, kids, everyone.
That's right.
So we made that decision. Luckily, Adil got another job offer in Melbourne. So we moved here, and then again took another brave step. Came here, started again from scratch. And then a couple of years later, we wanted to buy this business, which is a medical business. And again, I went into it fearlessly, with no experience in the healthcare sector.
Wow.
No work experience in Australia at all, because I had not worked until then.
That's right.
No experience in business, no experience in running a GP practice. So that's when the fear came. So that's when I got a little bit of anxiety over running the business, because it was like a new baby. And yes, it was a new world, change in lifestyle. So that's when it really hit me hard, and I experienced fear like I'd never experienced before. So it took a while, took a couple of months of going into therapy and having the support system for my from Adil and my family, and and then I got back on my feet. So So
it seems like you're very flexible. Like you bounce back and forth, but you still remain solid. It's really good. As I said a while ago in my introduction, that you're two amazing couple. It seems like I'm in Hollywood, ladies and gentlemen, interviewing Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt. How do you keep a strong relationship? Let's listen to this. Who's gonna talk?
Just pick your battles.
See? Pick your battles.
There's less battles now that I'm busy. See, when I was not working, there were more battles, because I had all the time to fight. I don't have time to fight anymore.
And you have all the time to think what's next.
Exactly. What should I bug him about this stuff? There's nothing like that. No, but how we keep our relationship going is, we used to try to do date nights. Right? We used to.
There you go.
But I mean, now the thing is, with COVID and all that, we kind of got lazy dressing up and going out and stuff like that. So now we do other stuff, like sometimes we'll say, do you want to meet for lunch after work? Or we'll go for a walk or for a hike, or a bike ride or something. It's not about us.
It's about
the
kids.
Why choose Australia to become a doctor? And I'll have a follow-up question. I have so many questions in my mind right now.
Sure. So before we moved to Australia, I worked in Sri Lanka, and I was doing lots of observerships in America. It was mainly in ICU and surgery, so I did a lot of renal transplant surgery, neurosurgery, some orthopedic surgery as well. But basically, spent most of my time in intensive care. So cardiac ICU, medical ICU, surgical ICU, and all of that stuff. So there's a huge toll that hospital medicine takes on a young doctor. I don't think people talk about it that much. And we had just pretty much newlywed, and we had a kid, and then I think during one year we had one kid, I was doing my internship, and then the next time came around, we had another child, but the point is, during those first years of marriage, I was hardly home. And I had a friend who also worked in the ICU who, when something goes wrong in the ICU, when there's like some kind of like breaking bad news or something that you have to involve the family, it always get me, you know. They were like, hey, it's got to be doctors, you need to go and talk to this family, you know, things aren't going well, you're really good at talking to them. So one of my friends noticed that I was good with talking to patients, and they were like, you know what you'd be perfect for? It's like GP in Australia. And I didn't give it much thought because, you know, back where we come from, general practice isn't really seen as a specialty. So I was like, you know, either I was going to do like medical ICU, like a physician, which is basically like a cardiologist or pulmonologist or respiratory medicine or something like that, or I was going to go down surgery. And at that point in my life, it was pretty much looking more like surgery. So I kind of like, you know, thought about it, but didn't think about it. But then because my wife was kind of, I knew that she was not happy with the way we were living. It was almost like a risk, you know. I was thinking of it like, okay, we'll go see what happens. So basically, whenever I work someplace, I'll always leave on good terms. So whether it's Townsville or Sri Lanka or the States, they've always told me, hey, anytime you want to come back, just come back. So we left Sri Lanka on those terms that we knew we already had a job lined up, but it was there and I could always go back to it. So kind of said, look, let's go check this out. You know, we don't have to do anything crazy. And that's why we came here with just 4 suitcases. We didn't want to like literally move continents, something like that. And I said, let's just give it a shot. And like 9 years later.
There are many doctors outside of Australia. I was watching right now. Maybe their friends, their families, you know, or relatives who are actually doctors already, or maybe studying medicine right now, and they wanted to come here as a migrant and become a doctor and practice the same thing, becoming a doctor. Would you mind, guys, if you could share what are your tips? What are the steps needs to be done?
I think a lot of your target audience who you're talking about would be in the situation where I was. They haven't finished their specialty, or they're thinking about specializing, or maybe they have finished their specialty, because we do have a lot of specialists here.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter when or why or how you come here. I think the most important thing in life is like happiness, but more like quality of life. And the second thing is purpose. So if you're happy with what you're doing, then it's not work. Then it's kind of like you enjoy your day. It's kind of like what you do. You do this because you love it.
Yes,
so
it's a passion.
It's not work. It's a passion, right?
Yes,
so
that's true.
So that's what I'll try to figure out. So if you are a young doctor somewhere else and you feel that you're not happy doing what you're doing, then it's time to reconsider your options. And
any pathways that you need to go to, like is there any school that you can recommend, a school that you have?
Yeah,
Where can they find that?
I don't think there's a problem with anybody's knowledge level coming from overseas, because most doctors are trained the same all around the world. The standard of education is really high. Doctors is always that 99.9 percentile of whatever rating system that they're usually come and examine with the RCG, which is College of
What's that?
RACGP is the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners.
I see.
I'm also on the new Fellows Committee, just became chair.
There you go.
So basically, the moving here just involves trying to figure out what you want to do. So don't be prejudiced about general practice. It's a specialty here. It's very prestigious, just like cardiology or any kind of surgery overseas. That's something we don't understand when we're from an Asian country or any other country. So, but other than America, where it's called family practice, the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all of us have general practice as a specialty. So it's pretty intensive. You finish your medicine and then you have something like 4 years, just like any other specialty training.
Did you say 4 years here in
4 years
Australia?
on top of, it usually on average about 4 years.
Okay, yes.
That includes the exams, right? In
Exams.
between. And were there any training? Remember that someone
Yeah, so it
helped you with
depends
some
where you
training?
go through. So there's registrar programs here that you can get into, and then I didn't actually have a registrar program. I kind of just winged my way through it, just through
Smart.
exams.
Okay. It's very
Not really,
smart.
just got advice from other people.
Okay.
And yeah, feel free to reach out to me for any advice. Anybody
There you
out
go.
happy
We'll
to
give
help.
you the website later on, or any emails later on. Please stay tuned
I'm a
for that.
huge believer in paying it forward. So
Love that.
if you get something in life, you always have to try to give it to others so that others can keep giving to others.
Yeah, and that's good. It keep going about paying it forward. It's nice, and the world will be much better, isn't it? Everyone will have this beautiful life and achieving their dreams in life as well. Which is and you've got a very supportive wife here. Whatever you do, she follows you and you follow her too. So that's
I'm very lucky with Azara. It's been
Ooh, Azara, very
Good.
lucky. I'm sure you're lucky.
Yeah, I am lucky. In this case, I actually followed his sort of career almost because I never thought I would get into the healthcare sector.
But do you miss being an event
I-
in the public relations and events, right?
I do. I used to so much before I started working. I do miss the whole people interaction, the whole
Love
glamour
it,
of it,
yeah.
and the meeting of the people. Yeah, I mean, I really feel like this the business sort of helped me understand what he does on a daily basis. Because until then I was like, oh, why is he so in a bad mood sometimes, or why is he so tired all the time? And but I now understand why he is like that.
God, that there are people like us who are here to support, well, not just the sick people, but also in whatever aspects in life, we're here to support them as well. And you, as a wife too, you have given such a huge impact to Adil as well, to keep him going with his mission and paying it forward. And again, you have found your life's purpose.
Yeah.
Becoming a doctor in Australia, is it true that you need to start in the original area once you've already passed the exam? Is it like a oral exam, whatever it is, and then you have to go to the rural area? Not rural. I mean,
Yeah.
what you call that? Interstate, regional. I mean,
yeah,
regional
EWS
area.
it's
Yeah.
called. Yeah.
Why is that? That was the question that I asked.
Basically, if you big cities, it's not just in Australia, it's anywhere in the world. In fact, the concept is just very simple. It's like if you didn't enforce a rule, the outside of any big city wouldn't have any doctors.
True.
Yeah.
Is
So
any-
in Australia, as a government, especially when you're working for like you just said, we are vocational registered is what I am as a fellow of the Royal College of Australian General Practitioners. You're serving not just your community, but you're serving actually a nation, right?
True.
So the government has to figure out how to spread the doctors more fairly across the whole continent.
Yeah.
And like I said, it happens in every country. And how they do that in Australia is they have something called a 10-year moratorium, which means for 10 years you have to work not in big cities.
Okay, 10 years.
Yeah. So there are some. So I just finished my so-called 10 years in February. Just
Back
gone
in
20.
Townsville?
No, just now. No.
Okay.
Just February 2021. So that's not quite 10 years because we've only been here 9 years. So how that works is because we worked in Townsville, you kind of get, I guess, extra bonuses for living in a rural city. So your 10 years goes quicker if you live in a rural city. So if I stayed in Townsville, we were there for 4 years. If I'd stayed there 3 more years, so 7 years total, that was the end of my moratorium.
Okay.
So I had some extra time. So let's say I spent 4 years in Townsville, that probably counted something like 5, 6 years, almost 5.5 or 6 years. So they have some calculator which basically calculates how much time is up. And officially I finished my 10 years in about 9 years and a couple of months. So I got a bit of a bonus just by working in Townsville.
That's cool.
There are some, I suppose, ways where you could still live close to Melbourne. because Melbourne CBD is really Melbourne, and everything
Yeah,
around
true.
is just suburbs of
Suburbs.
Melbourne.
Yeah.
So you could go to the furthest point suburb and still be regional
Yeah, it could be
Victoria.
rural Victoria or regional.
So it's
like outside
categorized
the
by,
city.
I think they call it RMA 1, 2, 3, 4, like zones basically. And it's by kilometers and population density, and there are maps online and stuff like that.
So it's an RMA, you said, right?
I don't agree with the exact terminology, but it's some kind of regional map.
Regional map, and they can Google that anyways,
You
right?
can Google it and find out where you can work.
yeah,
Doing different. If you want to work, what's the regional area? I just want to make a quick point about
Yeah, sure,
like
sure.
regional Victoria.
Okay,
So
sure.
I
Please.
think it's really important that anybody coming from overseas doesn't think that life in Australia is only in the big cities.
True.
Townsville was amazing.
good for
It
children.
was
You wanna go
wonderful. I wouldn't have left except that my wife
For
was
me.
not very happy there. So my point is that don't think that regional Australia is the same like regional other parts of the world where you might come from. It's developed. It's still got infrastructure, great roads, great schools,
Still
great
accessible
hospitals.
as
Yeah.
well.
There's literally nothing that you forewarned. I just didn't want anyone to think that regional is bad and city is
No,
good.
it's perfect
it's
for
just
starting families.
but it's also like an individual
Yeah.
choice. I think.
Yeah,
like
it's a
some
personal
people,
choice. Like
Yeah.
for me,
We have friends, doctors and non-doctors in regional Victoria,
Who
in
continue to
Townsville,
stay.
who would never leave
Never
because
leave,
they're
yeah.
just so happy.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
true.
it's a personality thing as well.
So many places here in Australia, guys, that you can go to whenever you've got a chance. You can even drive or go by plane, it doesn't really matter. It's beautiful, and it's such a beautiful country and multicultural and very friendly as well. How's the kids actually going with this settling from one place, from Sri Lanka, Townsville to here?
Oh, yeah.
I'll ask that first.
It was hard for them. In fact, actually, when we moved from Sri Lanka to Townsville, they didn't feel it so much because the little one was only 2. He wasn't even speaking properly. The older one, he was okay. He was open to the change. However, when we moved from Townsville to here, because they had just started schooling there and they knew, they'd started making friends, they said, "Oh, you're ruining our life." There was so much drama involved.
I know.
So I said, "One day you'll thank
Familiarity.
me." Because all their first cousins from my side are in Melbourne. So I said, "You have family and you'll make friends. Don't worry about it." So now 5 years later, they're happy.
Now, what keeps you busy right now? Now that you've moved to Melbourne.
Let's find something else to get busy with. And then the kids, So I've always told Zara that these guys are leaving quick. Like, our eldest son Ty is 14 now, 15 in a
Time
couple of
flies.
weeks, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And our youngest son is 12,
Gonna be
13,
12. Yeah.
13 later this year.
12 later this year.
Or 12 later this year.
That was the third one.
We have a
He
third
keeps
one.
saying he's 12, so.
It's a furry little third one. We have the third boy. And now what keeps me busy is my new baby, which is the business.
There you go.
That keeps me really busy. So that now it's back to my phones ringing after hours or Saturdays and Sundays and after work. But I know when to stop. I know what to bring home, what not to bring home. And now that the kids are older, I feel like they can also handle mommy not being around all the time.
More mature.
Yeah, so they're more mature. That keeps me busy, motivated, and happy. It is a GP practice, but I'll let Adil talk more on that.
People that I was training under, he said 2 things which kind of resonated with me. And the one thing that we've integrated in the clinic was he said, treat your patients like family. But that's the kind of mentality that we're trying to invest in. We're trying to convert this slowly into something like a Medispa, which is very holistic medicine, not just about tablets and pharma and this and that and drugs, but more about diet and exercise and breathing and lifestyle.
That's a good idea.
Therapeutics, whether it's acu or acupuncture, massage.
After talking to him, that he's a better doctor than a businessman. So he's very good at what he does.
Yeah.
So how we even ended up buying the practice is because he met this wonderful older doctor who had run this practice in Thomastown in the northern suburbs for 40 years. So he was looking to retire when he turned 70. And he met Adil. He had met numerous other doctors before. He had been approached by super clinics before, but he didn't want to just sell it and leave. He wanted someone to take over so that someone would look after his patients, because he cared about those patients.
Continuous care.
Continuous care. This is my personality, because I like to fix things, run things, coordinate things, you know. That's what I feel I'm good at. So he said, I'm going to continue to work in the other practice, which he had been working for 3.5 years. And he said he'll come here to our practice only once a week. So I was fine with that, because that way we don't have to work together all the time, which is what he said.
Don't work with a family member, especially the wife or the husband.
Exactly.
You're right. I mean, I didn't want us to work together, but I feel that it you know, maybe we have a couple of ideas. One of the ideas is maybe we want to get another clinic, perhaps. Okay. So I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket and then not be able to get out of that situation. But yeah, also I feel like it's if all you do 24/7 is just see each other as a couple, maybe that's not always the best thing. You know?
Yeah, it's a homely,
it's very peaceful clinic to work
It's not
at.
a big super
So
clinic,
that
you
one
know.
day.
Yeah.
Say hello.
I really feel like I work like 4 days, and then for the 5th day is just me having a chat with my patients.
Because our demographic in the area is older population.
Okay.
So they love to come and talk. In fact, most of them come actually to talk.
Yeah. When did it start? Is it this year?
January 2020, at the start of
last
the
year.
pandemic.
Start of COVID.
We took over at the start of the pandemic.
And it's not easy to start, especially with a shift to a pandemic.
So it's a very funny
Yeah.
story.
Oh my
When we
God.
got married, 1 year before our wedding was the tsunami.
1 week.
1 week, sorry.
One week before.
Oh yeah, so we got married on the 2nd of January. The tsunami happened on the 26th of December.
Yeah.
Not a funny story.
So, no, the funny story,
Tragic
it's a tragic story, but what I'm saying is I feel like there's always
Something.
a huge thing happens before another huge thing happens.
Like there's a sign, that there is something like this, but
it'll
there's
make
an
you only
opportunity.
stronger. Because, you know, we were almost going to cancel the wedding. People were like, oh, you should, is it a good time? Then we were advised to go ahead, you know, in spite of. So even this, we took over, the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
So there was a thing
It's been a
of, should
year.
we not, should we give up or no, you know?
Yeah.
So but we adjusted. So.
The wedding tsunami happened, and then we spoke to some elderly people in our communities, and what they
My
said
dad
was
as well.
your dad as well, and my dad, and then some other people, and what they were basically saying that, okay, yes, this is a tragedy, but life must go on.
Yes.
So therefore, a wedding is something is saying that no, we won't succumb to a tragedy or succumb to a natural disaster. We will continue living.
Yes.
And that's what we have.
Yeah.
We continued the wedding. It was much more scaled down. Of
We
course.
scaled it down, and our parents are like very religious, like they're Muslim. So in Islam, they say that even if there's a funeral, if there's a wedding planned, you have to go ahead with the wedding, because that is giving life or giving birth to something new.
True.
So you shouldn't sort of
There's still a good
put that.
message to
Yeah,
that,
you should.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's how we've sort of taken on everything that has come our way, you know. So
It's like, if there's a storm out there or anything, circumstance, you can't go over it or you can't go under it, just go through it.
Yeah.
Through the waves.
Usually-
Go for it,
usually,
at the end of that.
Usually a rainbow comes out.
Yes, after
Yeah.
that you can see that, wow, I made the right decision.
Yes.
And that's good. You know what, you're meant to be. Because you know what, you're like the strength to each other.
Yeah, the yin
And
the yin
the
and the yang.
yin and the yang. And what if, onshore or offshore, a doctor from offshore maybe, or onshore here, maybe in different regional areas, wanted to come to Melbourne and start practicing as a GP, employ them, or not necessarily employ them, but would you assist them on this one? Are they
Yeah, of course.
Would
We've
you
done
mind,
that
please?
We've done
A
that
lot of people
multiple
are
times.
watching.
Yeah, we had a friend of a friend who was wanting to move to Australia because his brother lived in Melbourne. Adil helped him a lot, just with advice. I mean, he was a smart enough man to pass his exams.
That's
But
right.
just tips, on how to do the exams, where to find work. In fact, he still lives in Townsville.
Honestly, you can be a yang today, a yin tomorrow, and you just swap.
Yeah.
And that's why you've met for the right reason. And look at you now, you've got this business. I really would like to thank you for this beautiful
Thank you for
moment.
having
We
us.
are honored
It's-
to be here.
Thank you too. It's a history now.